We are preparing some things, adjusting some things. In a minute, we will start our live today. Already, 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 we have already started. In a minute, we'll start today's live. Some interesting topics to talk about, to resolve, to open our minds a little more so we can see the reality that is right next to us. Sometimes when our minds close, our reality becomes difficult to see. Okay, it's 8 p.m. Let's start our live broadcast today. We are in Sao Paulo and today is January 15th, 2025. Today's live is Smiling for the Life of Representations. A smile for life is a great thing because we will use the smile as something to change to help you understand life, but with a smile. Sometimes you are very upset or very depressed or very closed off or very cornered or very angry or full of hate, and then you can't see the new things that surround you or that permeate you. So the idea is for you to try to let go, to create a feeling of joy. A feeling of lightness comes out and you smile, you laugh, you leave the brain connectomy, which was a rocky connectomy. We will talk about this in a little while, and you go to the connectomy that is paper. In the paper connectomy, you can see things better, which is outside the little house, outside the box, outside the habit that you are in. Okay. Uh, we're going to go over this several times until we understand it. At the end of the live, I think you and I will have a better understanding. So the most important thing is for you to know that smiling allows us to see what's around an egg, what's around us and inside us. Smiling makes it possible because it changes the brain connectomy. I sent you a link to where the live will be from the blog where the live will be. There is more description and even more links. It is a very complicated and very complete text, and we will try to just give a general overview. Important for you to know today, and we will talk about this a lot, is about cultural self. Cultural self. It's every time you realize that you are me, this me is cultural, so much so that if you were in another culture, born in another culture, you wouldn't realize that you are you in the same way. Because our me is cultural, our me is a belief. And today we're going to try to see how the belief that I am is constructed and how this belief that I am is preserved by minorities. Privileged people from all states. Do you understand? The privileged minority is the minority in Brazil. It would be the financial market that earns $1 trillion in annual interest. It is a privileged minority because with this $1 trillion annual interest, it imposes a history on the state, and this history imposes a cultural one. So let's get to this point. The first thing I have to remind you of, and it is important to remember, is that this is a very strong reasoning, very good for us to have. I always tell you I talked about feeling, about emotions, I talk about sensation and feeling. Differentiating these is very important. Why differentiate? How am I going to memorize all the senses, all the emotions, all the sensations, all the feelings already? You asked to smile, now you ask to memorize? No. We are going to try to do a little trick for you to intuit this, the feeling, the emotions, sensations, and feelings. Look, first the feeling. The feeling is something that is now. It is the presence, it is the heat, the pain. Do you understand? It is simple, it is direct. You feel things, it is very fast, you feel things. And in my concept, belonging is the primal feeling. The living being feels belonging. But this feeling can be hijacked to place in the cultural self. You see, super attention is a primal feeling. I am talking about feeling now. Feeling what? Heat, pain. It is simple, it is direct, it is in the present, it is now. Yes, you are present, you are now. You are the whole, you are a territorial body, you are this consciousness. But the cultural self kidnaps you. think that you are an engineer, a doctor, a pilot, a musician, a swimmer, a man, a woman. You think that you are what culture tells you that you should be. And this culture that tells you what you should be is the one that controls history. The one that controls our history today is the financial market, which earns $1 trillion in annual interest every year. $1 trillion. It controls our government. It controls everything. So just so you know, how are you kidnapped in this cultural self? First, feeling. Feeling has a sense of belonging, but feeling is heat, pain, a tremor. Feeling. Emotion. Emotion is already an automatic brief response of the body. You have a quick emotion. Joy, fear. Do you understand? It's simple. Emotion is something that happens to you. You have an emotion of joy and fear, for example. Feeling, pain, heat, feeling. But always my feeling that I place in you, the belonging. Don't give up on belonging in the primal feeling, sensation. Sensation is a perception of the body and emotions. I have a feeling of tension in my shoulders. Tension in your shoulders. How are you going to feel so much joy? Relax that shoulder. Actually, I am too. Let go, then you feel joy, you laugh, but without tension. Your body is moving, flexible, but the sensation, you have the perception of your body and emotions. Sensations are very important, especially when you enter flow. Flow is when you do something automatically. You are flowing in it. You do it with high performance, like blind faith or high performance. You do it so well that you can do it and think about something else. You can do it and have sensations of how tense your body is, sensation of how your emotion is. This is called metacognition. Do you understand? So the sensation gives you a will, a way for you to perceive your own body and your emotions, sensation, feelings. Feeling is a cultural construction that involves the cultural self, and normally pride and shame is already a strong feeling, or already, he calls it a second degree emotion too. Pride and shame, did you notice? The feeling is already a more elaborate construction. You can have the feeling of hate until you die. It is a construction outside of you, and this feeling, if it is not fed, it disappears, but it is fed culturally. Those who are inside fake news bubbles, damn it, are fed. They are fed to be there. A lot of money is spent. Today, between this week and the next, there was a it's tactical, with picks, if there's no money, the fake goes this way and that. Let's put some order in the house. No, everything in the financial market is creeping up. Let's put it in place. Take it out, take it out, take it out. Fake news, fake news, fake news. And now Pix has been taken out. I won't have control. I'll leave it uncontrolled. Because without control, those who control our history have more autonomy of control. Because they don't want the money to be tracked. They want the money to come out of nowhere and go to nowhere. You start a fundraiser with Pix and earn 16 million, and you don't have to explain to anyone where the money came from and how it came. You don't have to, you can't explain, because that's a criminal thing. But it worked now because the financial market goes and acts. It goes and puts it out, it goes and leverages fake news in a powerful way through avatars of deputies, okay? Just look at the deputies who posted videos, and the videos were shown more than 100 million times. It was leveraged by who? The financial market. That's how it is. And then you look and say, no, but wasn't that true? No, it's old. But the government has already taken it away. There's no problem at all, okay? So what do you have now? You know how to share feelings, sensations, sentiments. It's a cool little weapon for you because you have a feeling and you can buy it. I want to have a feeling now of joy, as I told you, of a smile. You have that feeling, that joy, you'll get warm in that region, and you smile, you open your eyes, and you're happy, you're happy. So this feeling can project emotions into your body. An emotion, when projected into your body, changes the brain connectomy. Oops. Remember the summary of your brain environment? Rock, paper, scissors. So with the feeling I can, which was in rock, go to paper, you can, you create a feeling of lightness, a feeling of joy, and you smile. But you have a smile based on your feeling of joy that you put in, and you smile, you have a nice smile, you have that smile, and then when you smile, you awaken the emotion of joy. The emotion of joy changes your connectomy. You were in a state of bullying if you are a child of 8, 9 years old, you were at school, and now you go back to the pair. When he gets scissors, where the prefrontal is well activated, for you to control your attention, focus on exploring and learning. Okay, I won't repeat this kind of thing many times because this move is very strong, okay? You know the feeling, the emotions, sensations, and feelings. And the feeling, as I told you, the feeling, if you enter the Devasian mind, the internal feeling, not having the and the sensation induced a feeling, an emotion into a feeling, you changed your mind. This mind is what perceives. Did you notice? So if you are tense, afraid, angry, or hateful, you are putting emotions and feelings into your body and blocking your mind. And this blocked mind is what perceives the world around you. It can be good or bad, it doesn't matter. You will see it the same way depending on the mind you are in. Understand with these terms alone, without having a greater cultural reading, within human history. Human history is interesting if you take human history back in medieval times, from then until now. In medieval times, you had a story, a magical thought. What is magical thought? You have an apple, and the representation of an apple, you make a drawing. What is magical thought? If I do something in the drawing, I will affect the apple. The apple, it's a thing, it's concrete. It's there, the apple fruit is there. You can bite the apple, you eat the apple. When you draw the apple, you have a representation of the apple. What is magical thinking? Magical thinking is when I take the representation of the apple, the drawing, and think that if I change the drawing of the apple, the original apple, the fruit will change. That's magical thinking. Jackson, how can someone think of magical thoughts? I did. When there was thunder, lightning, something, it was divine. The Alalindians in America, especially the god Tupangas, thundering too much. The deities speaking through the elements of nature. So I place the representation, which is the expression of this deity, and I place it in the representation. And magical thinking sometimes imposes words, and these words have the power to change the thought of a deity, for example. That's what magical thinking is, okay? Come on, Jackson, but okay, that's over. No, it hasn't. And that's what we're going to see today. The cultural self, over time, is incorporated into the culture, of course, of several things and several differences. And I'm going to talk to you today about a very big difference. All that Amerindian formation from the American continent about democracy, about the state, not using the name state, but about communion, about the well-being of the population for the benefit of each individual, sharing things. In fact, when Europe invaded, these concepts went there. And in this migration of concepts to Europe after 1500, 1480, 1500, when these concepts came to Europe, the Enlightenment movement began in Europe. A movement looking at what democracy is, what freedom is, coming from these concepts. But along with this, Protestantism was also strong in Europe, and Protestantism was already looking at religiosity, which was previously Catholic, totally focused on this magical thinking, that representation, that the Bible is a representation, and this representation, it's the whole. The representation is the real. Do you understand? Just as Catholics also believe that at the time of Mass, their little supper becomes the body of Christ. That is real, the representation becomes real. So this is magical thinking, it exists. The Protestant has already said, no, calm down, this is around 1500, 1600, calm down. Democracy, freedom, and so on. The Bible. How about we start to think about the Bible with reason and logic? In the Bible as a reference for truth, which is not, but it is rational. And he searches for the Bible and uses logic and reason on top of the Bible. This thinking is a thinking of science with evidence, because it uses reason and logic on top of an instrument, on top of a reference. But the Bible is a representation of a reality, a representation of a spirituality. You change the content and interpret it with Hellenistic demands, it will not change anyone's spiritual reality. Unless you are part of the population that controls people's cultural self, unless you are part of the high echelons of Faria Lima. And then you will control a lot of things through this knowledge, imposing an XYZ interpretation on top of this biblical religious interpretation, but even so rational. The Protestant is a little more rational, and he is doing the Protestant. He has a rationality that he will take the rationality and individuality on top of that and will place it on the divine. And then you have the Bible as adopted and you have a self. An ego that is formed on rationality, on this individual thing itself and on the divine word. And there is an ego that is formed. Aren't I? Look how interesting. So a Protestant himself at that time has a different self-formation than the one that was previously Catholic. It was a little more magical actually, okay? Based on the Bible. So much so that it wasn't really good for members to read the Bible. It was kind of forbidden in the Bible. Okay. But now there's another formation that I want to talk to you about. Something comes up, and in this Protestant formation, you have something second order. It's the following. This cultural self of the Protestant puts emotions inside the Protestant. Second order emotions. What is the second order emotion? Shame and guilt are placed inside the Protestant. He already has shame and guilt on top of this self that he constructs. The Protestant, when he realizes he is me, he already has shame and guilt. That the formation of this self of his requires this knowledge, this cognitive formation of shame and guilt. Guilt of being a cerebral, even from a very young age. Shame, I don't know, of getting naked, guilt for having sinned, but the shame and guilt are there. It's a second order emotion. Hold on, shame and guilt, second order, changed emotion, change the meaning, change the original mind. It is massacred, put inside a little box, canned, and now all I have to do is throw it in that little box. Imagine it like this, a little box, a little grate full of embers. On top of it there is water and the embers are underneath, but the embers are there, quiet. Then I go over there and I estimate it like this. Just for the base. When it's just for the base, through a lie, feeding your cultural self, the base lights up. Because the emotion touches you, your feeling changes, and your mind changes, and the water starts to boil. The boil. It's like those promises that the group used to say, look, the people in front of the quarter are getting discouraged. Go on, lie to them. Another 72 hours, you know? Just for the sake of it, so you simply condition this group of people to the restricted cultural self, that the one who is controlling, in the case of the group in front of the army, was Faria Lima too. Of course, he was with the money, trying to maintain the market, to never let the treks happen, for the pig to be regulated, for the financial transactions to be tracked. They really don't want that, so don't always attack the population too much. Then we have another one, which is the PT postal, the first order of the Protestant. The first order of the Protestant also has the pleasure of communion and the pain of disconnection. The Protestant, even following a logical reason with science and evidence, but adopting the Bible as truth, science and evidence will not adopt a representation as truth. But the Protestant will use science with evidence, adopting the Bible as a reference. In the first emotional order, he has the pleasure of communion and the pain of disconnection. Remember the pain of disconnection? It's belonging, the loss of belonging, the expulsion from the church, the exclusion from the church, the pain. Then you have the pleasure of food and the pain. Will I be excluded from the church because I committed this sin or not? That's Protestant, okay? But now we enter the Neo-Pentecostal, which is a new line. It's a different thing. The Neo-Parousto, the Neo-Pentecostal has a different rationale. He constructs a cultural self of subtraction and expulsion. It's interesting that you know this. Pentecostals managed to create their entire theory in the minds of Pentecostals, and by doing so, they want to build a self in your head, a self that you will realize is this self through subtraction and expulsion. What is subtraction and expulsion? They have to cleanse you of some things that are natural to human beings. They can't be anymore. Do you understand? If you're gay, you can't be gay. That's a disease. Do you understand? It's subtraction. They subtract to leave you with a very pure element. And if you have something contradictory, they expel the devil. Do you understand? Expulsion, expulsion. In the second emotional order, the Neo-Pentecostal feels guilty about weakness but proud of victory. He won in Jesus or in the Bible. Do you understand? He feels guilty about weakness, guilt about weakness, and pride in victory. Sometimes he is guilty of being poor. But I won, I had victory, I overcame this sin, do you understand? But in the first order, he has a relief of ecstasy and a feeling of liberation and fear of the return of evil. Pentecostals are afraid that evil will return. What governs you is that you don't talk about family, so I'm not going to lose my family and evil will happen. So this is an error stuck in the head of the Pentecostal, who is an ego, who is about subtraction and expulsion of demons, these things, okay? But the Afro religion is a little different. It is the ego of addition. It's the self of some. And I'm not talking about whether it's good or bad, okay? Afro religion is the self of some of addition. I incorporate to be better, Pentecostal, Neo-Pentecostal. I take things from the individual so that this self can be better. I leave this self very empty, and if it has any small distortion, I call it a demon and expel it. These differences from the rational line of religiosity. And in Afro, no. In Afro, it is additions. So in Afro, what am I going to include? I'm going to incorporate more things, more processes. Look at this Orisha, these things. Do you understand? They're going to incorporate spiritual characteristics into the individual so that he can expand a little more. He's going to expand his cultural self. Yes, but the one who's putting this in is the Afro religion itself, obviously. The second order emotion that Afro religion has is belonging and reverence. It has a reverence and a belonging. Note, belonging is the primal sense that I speak to you about, but Afro religion seeks belonging again now up here. In society, there are a lot of people who have lost their sense of belonging, so Afro-Brazilian religions provide this sense of belonging. You see, all religions seek belonging, but the first emotion is trust, a sense of protection, and fear of spiritual imbalance. There is a spiritual imbalance. It cannot be. Afro-Brazilians have a slightly greater spiritual balance. And there are also all the Amerindian religions, which I will not go into because I have not studied the details now to talk to you. Doctor, this is my cultural construct. It's not you. So you can have a more Protestant, more Neo-Pentecostal, more Afro-Brazilian cultural self even. You can have a magical mind, magical thoughts, thinking that when you have a representation of something, I have a voodoo, if I poke this voodoo representing a person here, that person will feel pain. That is magical thinking. The representation does not change reality. It is a representation, but it changes your brain formation. Understand? If you are in this eye and fixated on these eyes, in this little cage with embers, waiting for fake news to raise the embers, to activate this group you are in, try to leave with the smile of the group. Leave. Give that big smile. Then you are talking about the so-called connectomy, which I call the paper connectomy. You smile, your brain changes the way it communicates, you leave that restricted business. Look, the stone connectomy is the restricted business. The stone connectomy which I am talking about is Daniel Kahneman's System 1. System 1 is the one where you think fast, the response is all fast. Yes, but the response is all fast and automatic depending on the stimulus I am receiving from the system where I am. I receive fake news and believe it, and it is all fast. I no longer question anything. I am in a stone connected. I no longer question anything. I am a pure automatic machine. Then I pick up and smile. Relax, give a smile. This place, if it is not a place of massification, is your place to ride your bike. You are also in the place to take stones. You replicate what you know. It is the place of your expertise. It is the place of your high performance. Blind faith is a high performance. It is bad when you are very focused, but it is very good because your attention is focused, you know? It depends on what you do. So when you are talking about smiling, you open it, you are leaving this automatic thing that you perceive yourself to be, this cultural self, and sometimes with high performance, or blind faith in the good sense, blind faith well written, without you diverting your attention, productive, very productive. And then in this productivity, if there is a noise in the street, a signal, a flash, you do not divert your attention. You are highly productive, you are focused. When you smile, you are able to access an original mind. Because you leave the cultural self, you open it, you tear the cultural self, you return with a smile and go to the body and see mine. That pain I was feeling, that hatred I was feeling wasn't mine. It belonged to the group I was part of. It belongs to the group I am part of, but it doesn't belong to me. You smile, you suffer, and you talk about what I felt, especially before going to sleep. Always before going to sleep, you have to smile big, do a basic stretch, do a basic relaxation, give me a nice smile. That were imposed on you. Remember that if you had been born in another completely different sculpture, your feelings, your thoughts would already be different in that cultural self. But if you go in the original mind, without the interference of the cultural self, you arrive at what you would be the same in any culture. Feel the good, the feeling of putting on a joy. Joy not for nothing. Joy is, look, I feel it's warming, it's free. I'm joy without a reason. You created joy, you created an emotion, and you are exactly on top of the original self. The original self, the original mind. It perceives without the coloring of culture. Without cultural beliefs and stimuli. It is a self that perceives without culture placing things on you, without this Pentecostal, neo-Pentecostal self, without this Afro self, even Protestant self, without magical thinking. It is, it feels, and it goes. Because every thought from the very beginning stuck in your head, it maintains a cerebral formation that you perceive on top of what the culture wants you to perceive. And remember, science with evidence is fundamental for everyone. But in the current situation, science with evidence depends on money, on support, on money that comes from the market, often coming from the financial market or is modulated by the financial market. So the experiences of science with evidence, by the way, I was really upset when I went to talk to the researcher, whose name I won't even mention. He was studying ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, a really cool group. And he said, Jorge, you have to get in touch with this group. So I told him, yes, but if this group is going to look at this child's awareness, how they are, how they perceive the world, how they use it, how they live, for them suddenly not to have this attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, no, Hori. His money is focused on the child with ADHD, while he makes money from drugs to put this child to do regulation. I mean, science and coexistence. And you have to be smart, do you understand? You have to always return to your original self. Totally original, get rid of concepts, but keep them. Get rid of your perception of being. Understand your feeling, your position in space. And now I'm going to adopt this concept, this one, that one, to do that. I'm going to adopt this belief and this faith to do this. I won't be this belief or this faith. I adopt it to do something, and I don't get lost in my belief, my faith, or my cultural self, because the cultural self depends on the culture you're in. Guys, this is what I wanted to leave you with. Smile before you go to sleep. Don't go to sleep without smiling, without having joy and a smile, and smile wide. Don't go to TV to distract yourself. Stretch your body, smile nicely. Without this deception in the cultural self, which is certainly being controlled through the stories that are imposed on our state, the story of those who have the most money, which is the privileged Brazilian minority, those who earn $1 trillion in annual interest from the state, guys, and what a dream it is for the state to become smaller and privatize everything. Guys, that's exactly it. See you next Wednesday. A big hug.